Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and my fellow Toastmasters. It has been such a pleasure getting to know all of you over the past weeks, and I'm excited to share a bit about myself today with my icebreaker speech. As a poet and a writer, reflection on life is something I organically tend towards, and so considering what to share about myself today was both fun and natural for me. I rattled around all kinds of questions and eventually landed on what was one of the most important days of my life. Have you ever thought about this? There are so many that come to mind. The days my children were born, the day I got married, the day I made the agonizing decision to get divorced. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all important. One of the most important days of my life was the day I learned to climb a tree. Yep, the day I learned to climb a tree. The day was July 29th, 1976. My parents had just moved my brother, my sister, and I to a small farm in Maryland. It just so happens that this day was also my 7th birthday. I was overcome by the beauty and bounty that was now mine to be a part of and explore. But the most profound experience of that day and one of my life was when I laid eyes on the magnificent green maple tree in my yard. The maple was the first tree that called to me to come and climb. It was loved at first sight. It became my favorite out of the many trees of my farm, with thicker branches that allowed me to climb higher into the sky. I remember its slippery bark under my hands and the textured patches that I quickly learned were the best to use for support. When sitting on a branch, the view was one of straight limbs out in all directions and ending in a veil of thick, glimmering green leaves. It was like sitting inside of a precious secret. That first day when I walked under the tree and felt the call of new adventure, my 7-year-old self had to run for a boost to get me to the lowest limb. There was an old wooden whiskey crate on my new front porch, and I wrestled it back to the maple. The crate stayed there under the bottom branch until I grew tall enough to make it on my own. The branches were close enough together and thick enough to make climbing safe, but still demanded consideration, strategy, and a bit, at times a lot, of daring. Being hidden inside of something so special and alive, the maple became personal to me, a place to think, to cry, to explore, to conquer, to climb higher and higher. Reflecting on how such a simple, youthful act led me to where I am today made it clear how that day is one of the most important of my life and an understanding of myself. Intimacy that I felt with the tree when I was climbing was not so much with the tree as it was with me. Who I was and how I operate while climbing or resting in that tree is who I am and how I operate in life in its most simplest form. As an adult, the analogies are pretty obvious. Growth, climbing higher, success, challenge, reaching for the sky. For me, it moved from a resounding childhood experience to a tool from which to learn about myself. When life gets complicated or I get tangled up in the nuances and personalities of others, I have a pretty drilled down sense of self that brings me back to center. I thank my maple for that. In the branches of the maple, I learned that I like to tackle a challenge. And that tackling a challenge for me is like strategically planning a climb. When I want something, I set a goal. Which branch do I want to reach? When I consider the landscape. I make a plan, branch by branch, and then I climb. One hand, one foot at a time. If I get banged up on the way, I sit back for a moment, take another look around, and figure out if I need to revise the approach. Always keeping my eye on the next branch. I can climb decisively and carefully, or I can go quickly and with more daring. It's all in the demands of what I'm reaching for and how I feel I can most successfully get there. I also discovered my sense of adventure from exploring the branches of my maple. If the whiskey crate and maple could talk, they would share stories of years of adventures the girl had involved in their lessons. In the years I've been away from my maple and whiskey crate friends, I've continued to seek adventure in the greater world, confident and safe in myself and how I navigate. And lastly, I've felt the maple with me when I've gone through difficult times in my life. When I'm sad or confused, I wrap myself up in the thoughts, my feelings, my intuition. I immerse myself in the comfort and privacy of those branches and leaves while I sort out my feelings. Even when I was dealing with the demands of life and small children, I could allow myself the peace that thinking inside of that tree taught me. I can be alone with myself to figure things out. It's been a few years since I've climbed a tree, but I have two close redwood friends that grow in my backyard that connect me to my childhood experience. Some days I am their steward, but most days they are mine. Every day they invite me to feel their bark, to inhale their nature, to sit between their columns. They remind me to stay curious, adventurous, challenged, and free. They remind me to stay me. And that is why July 29th, 1976 was so important for me and my beautiful maple tree. Back to you now.